Welcome back. Now, a video has emerged allegedly showing the ANC Treasurer General Mashatile handing out money to woo church congregants. However, the party has come out and said the money was an offering to the church. The video has led people to question what is and is not allowed during election campaigns. The ANC and other parties are currently campaigning for the 2021 municipal elections taking place on the 1st of November. Let's speak to the IEC's Deputy Chief Electoral Officer, Masego Sheburi. Mr. Sheburi, thank you so much for making time. Let's start with that incident. What happened this past weekend? The ANC Treasurer General, Mashatile, handing out cash to congregants while on an election campaign. The party has said that the money was for church offering, but in terms of the law and the regulations around campaigning, can parties distribute cash to potential voters when campaigning?
Thanks, Clement. And I do not want to go into that specific case, but speak at the principal level to say, in terms of the law, handing out of gifts or those type of things are not outlawed unless they are deemed to constitute an illicit inducement. In other words, that I give you something in return of you altering your voting behavior. If they are not intended to do that, there is nothing that outlaws them in a scheme of electoral law.
Oh, I see. And you have not received any complaint with regards to the weekend, that incident over the past weekend?
No, we haven't. But let me add to say that the electoral scheme provides for a certain number of things, because in a democracy, an election is a moment for citizens to select their preferred representative from varied competing policy propositions. It follows, therefore, that anything that happens during the campaign period should be tolerant, it promotes tolerance, but does not result in undue influence or an exertion of undue force in order to compel a voter to change their voting behavior. If there is something, if it is alleged that that thing was intended to alter the behavior of the voters, then that may attract the provisions of the electoral code.
Yeah, suppose it would also be quite complex to prove that, in fact, that action was intended to alter someone's behavior when they get to the booth. I want to also talk about the incident that happened yesterday around the EFF this past weekend. They violated the lockdown regulations in terms of the number of people allowed in a gathering outside. Is that unlawful electoral behavior?
The enforcement of the disaster management regulations, fortunately, are not within the province of the Electoral Commission. So the Commission is not responsible for enforcing the disaster management regulations, and they are not part of the Electoral Code as it currently stands, nor are they part of the prohibited conduct in terms of the electoral scheme. If there's a case to be made as it relates to the disaster management regulation, that case ought to be hinged on the disaster management regulation, but not on conduct that is related to the elections.
Yeah, and I'm asking that question because I was looking at the statement that the DA released this afternoon saying, as the IEC, you must disqualify the EFF from participating in this year's elections. And I suppose that's pushing it a little bit, isn't it?
We do not have responsibility to enforce the code of conduct. And even if we had, the Electoral Commission is not empowered in law to issue sanctions. What we could do is, if the matter relates to the infringement of the code or electoral law, the Commission may cause that to be investigated. And if we think there's a case to be made out, we would then refer that to the Electoral Court, which is the competent body to meet and impose sanctions. The Commission cannot impose sanction in the manner that is included in the statement.
What else are parties not allowed to do during campaigning?
There are two things. Let's start with the positive ones. Parties during the campaign are required in terms of the code of conduct and prohibited conduct in terms of the electoral scheme to reassure their supporters and counsel their supporters that they must not engage in behavior that is not tolerant to other views. To say, protect the rights of other political parties to campaign, even if you do not agree with them. Don't create no-go zones areas. Don't double book venues and prevent other parties from using facilities. The don'ts are the following: a party or members of the party may not deface or remove placards of another political party. Parties may not engage in language or political rhetoric that may result in intimidation or in imminent violence against supporters, candidates, and leaders of other parties. Parties may not falsely publish false statements, knowing that those are false in relation to other contestants, be they political parties or independent candidates. And parties may not plagiarize the symbols and or logos of other political parties in order to cause confusion in the minds of the voting public.
All right. Masego Sheburi, thank you so much for making time. He's the Deputy Chief Electoral Officer at the IEC.